Hi, this is Ken Adams with Valley View, and this week we're going to be discussing Zambia, and we're going to actually be discussing it with a family that has intimate contact with Zambia, and it's a fund that was dedicated to Elizabeth Bowers for education among Zambians in the northwest section of the country. And maybe Linda, we have Linda Bowers and Jerry Bowers, the parents of Elizabeth Bowers. We have her sister Jennifer, and we have Lori Doty, who's going to talk a little bit about volunteer opportunities if people are interested in helping out. So Linda, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about how this was started and why?
Okay. Well, it started with our daughter Beth joining the Peace Corps and going to Zambia, to the Northwest Province, a remote rural village way, way out, almost up to the border of the Congo. And she was working as an aquaculturalist, teaching the farmers how to build fish ponds and how to raise fish for protein for their diets and also for market. And we lost Beth in a bicycle accident while she was serving in the Peace Corps. And so this came about, the Elizabeth Bowers Zambia Education Fund. We call it ebzef, which is easier, yeah. And it came about as a result of memorial funds that came in to honor Beth. And we were trying to decide what to do with those memorial funds. And her supervisor in the Peace Corps, Dan Irvine, helped us decide that what we should be doing is supporting the education of girls in the village, because young women in the village would be married at age 12, have 8 to 10 children, had very few opportunities besides that. The families were agricultural families who earned below $1 a day. I mean, they're way below what we would consider poverty level. And there was no way that the families could support these girls in school. So we began an education fund, a scholarship fund, with the help of the Peace Corps. Right? And Peace Corps turns over its volunteers every 2 years, so they could not guarantee sustainability for us. And we had to find another partner. And we found World Vision Zambia, who handles our funds for us. So we have complete accountability. Our funds go through, we don't donate to World Vision Zambia. We hire them to handle our funds. And so we have complete accountability for any funds that go through us for the scholarship fund. So over the past 10 years, we have sent over 300 girls from grades 8 through 12, and we have a number of girls in college. Several girls have already graduated from college. We built a library in the village with the help of Books for Africa. We sent 20,000 pounds of books to the library. It's the largest library in the whole province, and is well known all through Zambia. We helped to bring light and literacy was the name of our project. We put solar panels on the library and brought the first electricity to the village. We've initiated a preschool in the village, and we're helping the village to view itself and the education of its children in whole new ways.
Now, were these some of the graduates from this? Were they the first girls from the village to go to college?
Oh yes, yes, yes.
So that's quite an accomplishment.
Absolutely, and incidentally, they called themselves Beth's Girls.
So they took that as their own.
Yes,
okay.
yes. She was their role model. There were no other educated women role models in the village. Right. Now, of course, they've become their own role models. And
they come back to the village after going to college? I mean, because sometimes that's a problem where they get educated and then they go to the big cities.
I'd love to say something about that. One of the things is that the women, the roles that they've played in the village are actually working out in the fields, doing all the heavy labor to and from water, collecting water, taking care of the children and also the men's needs. And one of the things that this has done for them, signing up for ebzef, they also are part of the contract is that they give back for 2 years to Zambia, to their own home, and it's just fantastic. These women have learned and gained what self-respect is, and they actually have that.
And some confidence.
Yes, absolutely. And the men's reaction to that is they find that they can make decisions together with the women, and they like an educated woman. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's something that, I wasn't sure what would be the men's reaction, because a lot of places in the world, it would not be a good reaction.
It's interesting that you say that, because initially the boys were very jealous, extremely jealous of the girls, because this was a scholarship only for girls. And they set about to make the girls pregnant so that they couldn't go on to school. And they
But
were...
that's changed over the years.
Well, immediately, as soon as we found that out, we said that if a girl became pregnant, she could have her baby and then she could go right back to school.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't that way before. If you had a baby, you couldn't go on to school. But we made it very clear that our best girls could indeed go on to school. And after a while, they kind of outgrew that. That doesn't mean that there still aren't girls getting pregnant at early ages, but it does mean that the model has changed significantly.
Yeah, they have role models now. They have Beth's girls that have gone through the system, secondary, and now are in tertiary school. And they are, for example, Prudence is working for World Vision and is a liaison with the village. So she's a perfect role model. She's the Beth's girl herself, but she's also a World Vision professional, and speaks on behalf of that organization to members of the village. So all the girls can look at Prudence and
They have somebody right there
Yeah.
that came from their village, that they can see, there's something else out there for
right,
them.
because before ebzef, the fate of the girls in the village was to help in the fields, and maybe not even get an education past 7th grade.
If they were lucky, even
And
seventh grade.
and a lot didn't get that. Yeah.
And these women are quite extraordinary that actually do make it through the education system because they have so much work to do. And so a lot of them will get up an hour, like 7 a.m. or something before to do their work, and then do their schoolwork, and then be able to go to school. So they would never have had the opportunity.
Yeah,
before.
I worked with a group that did solar heaters for basically for Africa, because they were saying that a lot of women were going miles for firewood, and that would be probably north of Zambia, more likely. But the thing is that they found that extremely useful as freeing up a lot of the women's time.
Yes.
It's not
Or
going out-
carrying water on their
Well,
heads,
yeah.
yes.
Well, not only
For long
that, but they
distances.
then designed a cheap little thermometer that would float to the top when it got to, I think it was 155 degrees, which meant that none of the
Bacteria.
parasites and things like
Right.
that could survive, because they didn't need to get it to boiling. And you could do that in these little solar heaters and like that.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Well, another thing about these girls, about Prudence and Sandra, who became our librarian for the
Okay.
library, we educated our own Beth's girls. They are in their, like about 27, 28, and they each just now are getting married. And what they're doing very consciously and deliberately as being role models is showing Beth's girls that first you get your education,
right.
then you get your job, then you get your husband, and then you get your babies, instead of the other way around.
Well, it's kind of interesting too, because usually as women are better educated, the need to have a lot of kids kind of goes away. So now you're not feeding so many mouths either, and like that. So if you're a farmer trying to get by on subsistence, if you've got 6, 7, 8 kids, I mean, that's a lot of
Labor.
labor. And so, like, if you're only taking care of 1 or 2 or 3, that's a lot more manageable on a small plot. And you said it was agricultural society.
Yes,
And they
yes.
don't do hunting, I would imagine, or very
There's nothing
limited.
left to hunt.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was
they've
my
eaten
next
all the
question.
animals.
Everything's been eaten.
Okay.
When you're starving, you eat whatever moves.
Well,
that isn't human.
yeah, right.
Well,
They're not-
that's what brought Beth to Zambia in the first place. Because she was showing the farmers there how to do aquaculture. So they're raising fish that eat
Algae and
yeah.
different things like that?
Yeah, farm refuse that
Right.
they can put into the pond, and then it creates a pool of low-level
Thanks for that.
cellular life that the fish can feed on then. And yeah,
And so that's what she went for. is
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what she
aquaculture.
wants. That was to
Yeah.
increase the protein available to the people there because
Yeah.
they had a deficiency in that.
Yeah, because I had a friend that was in the Peace Corps, and this we're talking about the 70s, early 70s, and they were doing kind of Western-styled agriculture, which required a lot of fertilizers and insecticides. And he said he felt really bad because it
Yeah.
wasn't really conducive to what they were going to be able to sustain.
Right.
And so this was just aquaculture. Is there any kind of other help going on, though, as far as their agricultural practices, or do they have fairly good practices to start with?
They're pretty primitive practices, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they have their own traditions.
Okay.
and-
World Vision is
Yeah.
working with them, is working with the village as well, helping with agricultural. And that will come. That will come as this village is beginning. The whole village is responding to the changes we're helping to make, and the difference in the way they view educated women, the difference in the way the women view themselves, and the whole village is beginning to develop, and so they will be educating themselves as well and learning how to use other kinds of agricultural
Practices.
Yeah. So Peace Corps and World Vision are two big partners that work with villages in that regard.
Yeah, now is this model of this village now starting to spread to some of the other villages that are around this? Or is it fairly isolated to this one village?
Well, one thing I did want to say was regarding the library.
Mm-hmm.
And they had just started having like an African newspaper. And that is bringing in people from all around. And it's elderly people, whereas before it was mostly being used for the education of the young women and whatnot. But it's actually attracting a wide variety of different people. So it is spreading, and it's daily. So that's pretty exciting.
So some of the other villages in the neighboring area might then start seeing women as a resource as opposed to just workers.
Yeah, and the library is a great resource. you
Right.
know.
And so that they can come in and further their education no matter how old they are.
Yes.
And that's an important thing, too.
Yes.
And just recently, they decided to put a billboard up in the road that goes by the village. And so more and more people are hearing about the library. And
Oh, a billboard for the library?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They see it as an economic resource.
Well, yeah, because if there's nothing in that area, and if, I would imagine, it's creating a lot of goodwill in the area to have that kind of resource. And
One of the things about our organization is that we're very small, very, very small. But we have large partners. We are partnered with World Vision, and we are partnered with Peace Corps. And we help to bring these partners to the village. And because the village works so well with us as an NGO, a non-government organization, these other organizations are willing to work with them because that is already established. That dynamic is already established. So we've helped them to partner with Engineers Without Borders.
oh, okay.
And one of the things Engineers Without Borders did was there's a program that has all sorts of agricultural suggestions for undeveloped countries, and they put that on the computers, and it's just such a rich resource for them. So they have that; they can educate themselves that way. It's such a rich resource that Peace Corps, the headquarters of which are in Lusaka, the capital city, which is 2 days away, travel.
Oh, okay.
They want to send their volunteers up there to use that resource. It's such a good resource.
So, what is the main crop in this area? Or do they rotate crops at all, or is it just mainly like maize and yams or whatever?
Cassava.
Cassava.
Cassava is a big crop,
That's the biggest, yeah.
and that's what they make their staple called nshima out of,
Okay.
which is a white, sort of looks like mashed potatoes, except it's a heavier constituency, and you eat it with your hand. It's served at every meal.
Oh, okay.
And you usually have nishima and a relish, and you take a handful of it and you knead it, and then you pull off a little piece and you put it on your thumb and you indent it like a spoon, and then you pick up and then you eat the spoon. And then you make it another one.
Yeah, well, it's just that, like, I know that a lot of times in third world countries, they grow one crop, and that usually depletes the soil of various nutritional values, and as well as kind of just depleting the soil, say for nitrogen and like that. That's one of the reasons why I asked if they rotated their crops to put, like, say, nitrogen back into the soil, or what they do to help that process along. Because if you're just growing one crop all the time, sooner or later you're going to pay a big price on that.
Yeah, I suspect that they do because the agricultural practices are informed by Peace Corps brochures and advisors.
Oh, okay.
And so they have access to all of the agricultural knowledge that Western farmers have. They just don't have the machinery and so on.
Yeah.
It's all done by hand.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Western farming these days is more manufactured farming.
Yeah.
And like when I was growing up, they rotated crops, and whereas they don't do that so much today here in the United
Because
States.
of the
even.
size of the farms.
Yeah, and they tend to monocrop and like that. But like in your second and third world countries, you need to be rotating crops.
Well, Peace Corps specializes in
trying to make it sustainable.
presenting the agricultural information in a way that's third world appropriate.
Okay.
And training the people to use it.
Yeah, so
That's something that's changed
it's
since.
a useful technology that they provide.
And Peace Corps has been very successful in Zambia because though it may be in there between the Congo in the north and Zimbabwe in the south, which are really terrible places right now, they are a peaceful country. And Peace Corps, as I say, has been very successful. They have doubled and even tripled the number of Peace Corps volunteers they have in the country.
Oh, okay.
So, but Zambia still is one of the poorest countries in Africa. It's always at the bottom of the poverty list, and it's not because it's a Z.
Okay. and that's because it's strictly agriculture and they don't have any industry.
Yeah, and if your crops are good, you eat. If they're not, you don't.
Well, that brings up, is their weather somewhat variable so that they have problems one year and not the next?
It could be they've had very terrible floods sometimes during
they
the
have a rainy
season
season and a
and
dry
dry
season.
season.
They have their droughts. And, yeah.
So have they been adversely affected by climate change, for example? Or is it too early to tell?
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell, but I don't think I don't think the average American understands the level of subsistence farming that's going on. It really is. You have the seeds from this year or what you plant next year. And if you don't have a good crop because there's not enough rain, or maybe the dry season was just evaporated your water supply, and your food never matures, you actually either starve or rely on extended family to get through to the next year. There's nobody to bail you out. The level of poverty is such that the children are running around with worn out shoes and worn out clothes. Sometimes there was one little boy had one worn out sneaker.
That's all he had.
And that's all he had. That he kept it on. He loved
very
that
proud of
sneaker.
it.
Oh, okay.
But that's a level of subsistence that we're not acquainted with, at least not in recent history in the United States.
So, this is, you're centered here in Salem.
Yes.
And so what kind of support do you get from the local community here?
Well, Lori is one of our wonderful volunteers, and you are on our library committee, which is a very active committee, and you do all sorts of things in the community.
It's been fun working with ebzef. I started out just donating money in honor of Beth, and after I saw some of the incredible things that ebzef has accomplished, Then I wanted to become more involved. I've helped on several fundraising projects. We've done some parking lot sales and yard sales. We've done at least one Christmas sale at Willamette University. And then I wanted to do a little bit more, so I joined the library committee. And I haven't been on the library committee very long at this point, but so far I've noticed that we help keep the library maintained. We make sure that they have the equipment and the books that they need. Right now, at the last meeting, we've been talking about the need for preschool supplies, and so now we've actually been talking to people. Apparently, at Willamette, the preschool. You probably know more about it than I do. But the teaching.
The education department.
The education department is going out of the preschool business, and so they have all of this, these books and equipment that they don't know what to do with, and so we're going to figure out a way to get it over to Zambia.
Oh, okay. And what kind of, if people are interested in helping out, what kind of activities could they be doing here in Salem, say, for example? Or did I?
There's all kinds of activities. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to interject that one of the really, really cool things that I think that has been happening is elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. We have relationships with all of those levels of education as we have the women going through their different levels of education in Zambia. And Shirley School in this past year raised over $1,000 in pennies for the school supplies for the girls in Zambia.
For the preschool.
Yeah, and I just think that that's amazing, you know. So we do have a lot of support and work together with schools. Also, a middle school that we've worked with has been fundraising with us for a while, and they even had a course that was sort of structured after ebzef, and it was a great teaching tool for them. Also, I was you could tell them more about that.
Well, and it's Adam Stevens Middle School,
Right.
and those children are the children of migrant workers, so they don't have much themselves, and they're also studying English as a second language, so they're already working interculturally, so they just loved getting involved with ebzef and getting involved with the culture literally on the other side of the world.
I think it's really important too that children see how other children live,
Right.
and because we're so privileged here, and I really do think that these children of migrant workers that don't have that much, you know, it's just amazing.
Children helping children.
Yeah,
But $1,000 in pennies is really...
it's a lot.
That's pretty heavy.
For several years,
Yeah.
we sponsored what we called a Zambia night, and there was a lot of volunteer opportunity in that because we had games that people play in Zambia, and people could come through and play the games. We had belly dancers that came in and volunteered.
From North Africa.
and drummers,
Yeah, drummers.
and an African market, children's
That
choir.
was an incredible.
Yeah.
So are there any things that you're looking for here in the community, though, that maybe people out there would be interested in doing or helping out with? Or
When we have a serious volunteer, someone who's seriously interested, I always have coffee with them, and we discuss what their interests are, what their talents are, what their needs are. It's important to us that the volunteer gets as much out of this experience as we
Right.
do. And then we try to find the exact niche where and how they can plug into ebzef once we get a sense of
or what they can
who
add
they are.
to the group.
Sure,
Okay.
or what they
So
can bring to us.
you try to make it centered on the person that's volunteering.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There's one high school girl that comes to our parking lot sales and sells Otter Pops to people. We have them on hot days, so she sells Otter Pops. It's pretty individualized. Whatever you think you can do to help.
Oh, okay. Because I know a lot of times groups will say, well, we need this or we need that.
Yeah, well, we
and-
are always on the
Look
lookout
out.
for good fundraisers.
Yes.
But really, when somebody volunteers for your group, you're trying to see how they will fit into
Sure.
the group and what they can do.
And I say again, it's important to us that that it be a rich experience for the volunteer as well, that we're helping each other, that we're learning together, that we're...
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too, because I just recently retired, and I know a lot of people that are in my age group are quite often, okay, we're not working, but we still need to do things. And
Send them our way.
well, I know there's one lady, she's like in 3 groups right now, spending most of her time, volunteering in one group or another. And she says she's happier than she's ever
Sure.
been, because
Sure.
she's doing the kinds of things
Yes.
she likes to do.
Giving back does that to you.
Well, yeah, and I mean, usually when you're working, you don't have time,
That's
or
right.
you're terribly fatigued when you
That's
do
right.
have time.
That's right.
So I'm certainly enjoying my free time these days, but volunteering in very different things. But I mean, it's kind of something that I think that people sometimes, when you retire, you need to be doing other things.
Yes.
Otherwise,
Oh, yes.
you kind of stagnate.
Sure.
And
I think that's one of the reasons Peace Corps is recruiting people over 55.
yeah, well, actually, I did try to join the Peace Corps when I was in my 20s, and because of my skill set, they were going to send me to Saudi Arabia
Ooh.
or Kuwait, and I
Uh-huh.
just decided that was not going to be something that I was really interested in doing. And it was, it was data processing, so I just didn't feel comfortable in that environment. Plus, the
Sure.
50-page application kind of threw me, too.
Oh, it's difficult to get in. It is.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite an application process.
And Beth spent a year in Japan and spoke Japanese pretty fluently. And of course, Japan does not need Peace Corps help. It's a highly developed country. But she wanted to go, so she didn't have French or Spanish or other languages of undeveloped countries. And I don't know how she chose Zambia. And when she told us she was going to Zambia, we said, where?
Yeah.
We had to get a map out and look. I mean, people
Well,
know
what
it as
made her-
Northern Rhodesia, I think.
Yeah. What made her join the Peace Corps? What was her drive to join the Peace Corps?
This is in.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, honey.
I was just going to say that she wanted to give back all that she'd received in her whole life. Like, she really felt like she was a very privileged young woman, and she just wanted the opportunity to give back to someone that really needed it.
And so it was rewarding for her.
She went to
Yes.
Earlham College in Indiana, which is a Quaker school.
Oh, okay.
And when she went to college, she wanted to join the FBI.
Okay.
And in fact, she'd even been a police cadet in Salem. And when she left, she joined the Peace Corps. So that was the result of her education in a Quaker school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so her values shifted, and having had the experience in Japan, she felt that she knew first world country culture, and she wanted to have the experience of a third world culture.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I was kind of curious about that because, I mean, a lot of people today don't really, young people, from my experience, don't generally join the Peace Corps like they did in the 60s and 70s when I was young.
Not so. Willamette University, in fact, consistently, annually gets awards for having the most Peace Corps volunteers per year
okay.
coming out of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just
Young
talking
people
about
do
the
have
young
a sense of
people
service.
that I knew or know generally don't consider the Peace Corps. So I was kind of glad to hear that that's.
Yeah, I think under Kennedy there was
Well,
a
yeah, there
kind
was
of
a big
idealism.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big
But you
emphasis
do need a
on
college education.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to say, just really, really quickly, is that with the economy the way it is and whatnot, one thing I've experienced is doing some volunteer work for ebzef is really nice in between jobs. And I want to put that in there. And also that we are available for volunteer opportunities and whatnot on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to wrap up. And the thing is that I've included the website on the credits. So if anybody's interested, they can contact the group through bethsgirls.org. And thank you for watching Valley View, and come back next week.